right, so we are almost there, everybody. I know that we are the last panel. I just want to thank those who stuck around to listen to us. We're going to focus in today on the future of the entertainment marketing landscape. So I'd like to sort of kick off. They just met me in this last panel, so I don't need to reintroduce myself. But I'd like each of you to sort of introduce yourselves and then just tell me something that you've seen happen in 2023 that you think is indicative of where the future of entertainment marketing is going moving forward.
All right. Hi, I'm Meaghan Nelson. You may have seen me on my earlier panel. I'm the Executive Director of Social Networks for Brandwatch. So in that role, I work with all of our social networks partners to make sure that they are kind of getting the most out of our partnership and partnering with them on how they use insights to shape their strategy. So in terms of kind of where I've seen, media shifts, I guess personally is always in the social space, right? So seeing new social technology come on the scene, whether it be a new social platform like the Be Real coming on, or just new functionality within social platforms, and just seeing how those sorts of moments can be capitalized by other major brands looking to really make an impact with their audience.
I'm Jonathan Viola. I work for Netflix in creative marketing, and I'm responsible for generating 360 creative campaigns globally. I would say 2023, as in shape 2024, would be the, I think, continued mining of video game properties for IPs and franchises. We're going to shape, I think, a huge slate for studios, for streamers that are actually going to generate a lot of transmedia content out there in the world, especially in a vertical that's been legacy-wise, as far as content goes, mired in mostly misses and very few hits. But I think that did change 4 years ago with Sonic live action coming out with Paramount. It's a huge paradigm shift in that content. Before that, I think Resident Evil was mostly hit or miss, but it was still successful. But now, with the advent of, I think, Sonic Prime on Netflix, most recently Mario Brothers, the recent news about, Zelda, and even, Last of Us being mined as well and done so well by HBO Max, it's now proving that video games are a huge, I think, content generator for mining new IPs and franchises and generating that content that are going to be massive across the board. And it's not going to stop or slow down.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shachar Scott, and I lead global marketing at Meta on the hardware and software side in Reality Labs. I think, what we're here in Vegas, and so I think for me, what is changing pretty dramatically with things like Sphere is just the immersion of marketing and how brands are able to really move consumers closer to their product and really bring demos to life in ways that have never been done before. And so for me, I think that's just really another surface and way for us to engage more closely with consumers.
Great. So now I have some questions for you guys. Meaghan, I'd love, what I found interesting about Brandwatch is that, you're doing a lot of listening and monitoring. Talk to me about how your customers in your company are, really adapting and changing to their customers, because we heard in the previous panel about storytelling and just how important it was, but tell me how that helps shape campaigns. Like we were talking a little bit about how you can maybe do as much up front now and just know what people genuinely think.
Yeah, so I think the whole thought of thinking about pre, during, and post campaign as being the different stages and the research that goes into all of those stages. So research starts at the beginning, right? Kind of get a sense of who your target audience is and what they're talking about, what's resonating with them content-wise, perhaps on other topics and other areas, finding some synergies there. Crafting a campaign that then speaks to whatever you've learned, but continuing to do that research. Research doesn't stop when the campaign starts. Research continues in that moment. Continuing to listen, continuing to understand how they're reacting to what you're putting out there, so that if you do need to make shifts and changes in real time, in a digital age, that is possible. And then, also doing that post-campaign work to kind of listen to the full story of how your your consumers were feeling about what you put out there to help kind of shape the next campaign.
Jonathan, we,
Yes, Bryan?
always going to bust my balls. Netflix has a very deep bench for such a young company of both data and of properties. And it's always fascinated me just how they as a company can bring in genres like the animation, Squid Game, which would come from Korea, to be able to really see what customers want and sort of use the power of your platform to bring new things to the forefront. So talk to me a little bit about sort of how that's changing what you're doing and how, you touched on that with this, but talk to me about some of the latest animation and stuff that's really moving into a new area.
That's a good point. I think it kind of stems from what you were just talking about with regards to doing your best to forecast and plan a promotion in a campaign, but at the end of the day, things are going to happen, conversations are going to happen, the zeitgeist is going to do what it does best, and it's out of your control. So we try to be as nimble as possible, as vigilant as possible, and listen to your audience, both good and bad. Everything's in a data point, consumer insights, using things that are going to be available to us from content, whether it's tracking, peak interest at this scene or this part of a trailer or clip. We know that's a scene or something we can kind of later mine and kind of allocate resources to later on and say, we know people are responding to this shot, so let's use this clip later on in this campaign and maybe build an entire reactionary campaign to that. But I think that comes from being vigilant as hell and having, I think a lot of third-party resources at your disposal to get as much information as possible. But in that, I think, you can talk to this a little bit better than I could, but too much information is not that useful unless you actually synthesize it to what the hell it means and how you can kind of turn that into a campaign moment or beat for you. But I think that's kind of the power of kind of being able to put something out in the world, not plan for it to be a hit, because that does happen more often than you think, but still rising to the occasion and offering something that's going to be servicing the fans, the audiences, the interests, and doing something immersive perhaps, or again, putting a campaign behind that to actually build even more awareness to that reactionary. So I think having a reactionary market plan in your back pocket is always a safe bet. Even if it's something that's not going to be able to pull the trigger on immediately, it's going to be something that you can be able to kind of leverage later on and build a campaign to sustain that from. Does that answer your question, Bryan?
Sufficiently, yes.
Thanks.
Shachar, you're here representing Meta, who has made a huge investment into sort of developing new technology, improving technology to bring headsets and other amazing, I'm a huge fan of the Ray-Bans now, we were just talking about this before. But talk to me a little bit about how it's sort of evolving the ways and techniques to market to people with these new electronics and equipment that you're bringing to market.
Yeah, so we believe in just enhancing human connection, and so all the technologies that we put into market, whether it is Meta Quest and the new headset, which mixes reality both virtual as well as using 3D pass-through, where you can play Assassin's Creed in your living room or learn how to play piano while sitting at your kitchen table. All these technologies are allowing you to be entertained, but also of your own home, and also not disrupting other things that are happening around you. With Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses, similarly, your mic doesn't want to cooperate.
It's ironic when you're talking about technology.
I know, right? This mic fit.
We got a new mic.
Getting an upgrade. Okay. Hands-free, you can be at a concert enjoying your favorite band and, record content without taking your phone out, without creating a barrier between you and what is entertaining you, or, being at a basketball game and sitting front row and asking Meta what the stats are of another game. Like, there's a lot that we want to be entertained by, and then there's technology that enhances that, and that's what we're trying to do, and really not disrupt the human connection that people are having either with their favorite IP or band or content or game that they're playing, but actually make that even more immersive.
speaking of immersive, talk to me about Netflix Netflix position on doing experiential marketing. Because I think that on the last panel we were talking about how things may before have been broad, big, expensive, but maybe not as personal or reaching as much. I know that you've just come off of doing some great experiential work. For your work, I'd like to know how Netflix is helping to connect and move experiential marketing into the next year.
Be happy to. I think it's another good segue from what you just said about extending that human connection. I think in our verticals, Bryan, yourself with a captive audience in theatrical, myself with a passive audience in streaming that can get up, go to the bathroom, take a Netflix and chill break if you're savvy, or get a snack and make some popcorn. It's a very different environment, but at the end of the day, I think what immersive and experiential does for us is bridge that gap. It takes that kind of peak interest, that engagement, that audience fandom that you kind of generate and hope comes out of that, and brings it to you. I think they spoke very eloquently last time about fishing where the fish are, like marketing it where the audience is, and this is an example of that. So as far as our policy goes, or our kind of best efforts, there are none. We really want to kind of galvanize and kind of trigger that as much as possible with the right property. If we see this right, data signs and interest from a certain property or show, we're already starting kind of, thinking about that. And I think it speaks to the recent news as far as, us building permanent spaces in the marketplace. Retroactively, I think we're looking at building out how do we kind of build out our flywheel of services and offerings to fans so that you are able to express your fandom in a very safe, authentic, sincere environment. It's almost like a lightning rod to show up in cosplay if you want to. You're not going to get judged. We're all kind of, geeks and nerds and fans at that point in time. But I think another great opportunity for experiential immersive is it's a means of cross-functional support for consumer products and partnerships that feels authentic, sincere, less sweaty, because you're already giving people an HQ or a home to kind of go to, a destination. And it's once you kind of immerse yourself in that destination, you actually want to continue that journey, as opposed to selling things through a spot or, again, very passively through a kind of TV commercial. This is a way of personalizing it and making it seem like it's really made for you. And I think that, at the end of the day, is the power of having something tangible and immersive.
I love that we've gotten to the point where it's not a matter of are you a geek or a nerd. It is what are you a geek or a nerd for. And it's just that's what the great equalizer has been. So you could be a whiskey nerd, you can be an F1 nerd, you can whatever it is you're into. That is what the internet has done. It's brought people closer together.
That's what we say. We say everyone's a geek.
Exactly. So let's go back to what you were talking about. I mean, your company has gone so far as to rename itself Meta, to talk about the goal of connecting people. We talked about the hardware part of it. I'd love to talk about the virtual worlds, horizons, the ones that are just sort of evolving to find new ways to connect to people. So talk about where that is in it really is infancy and growing up as a platform, and where you see it going in the future and how brands integrate into that.
Yeah, it is definitely in its infancy, and the move to rebrand Meta was, seeing around corners and seeing how the future of how we were going to connect in these ways was going to only continue to get more immersive. And Horizon is going through a lot of evolution. We are seeing a lot of people use it actually every day. We recently announced and launched on 2D, so you can actually play Super Rumble on Instagram, on Facebook, on your phone, and then I can be at home playing it on my Quest 3, and we can be playing together. And so it is about scale, and it is about creating as much access as possible to the software. That's a big part of what Meta is about, is providing things for free. So the same thing that our kids probably spend lots of our money on with Roblox. Horizon is free, right? And so there's a lot of benefit to that, and we're doing that for a number of reasons. A, because we care about access, and the 4 billion people who use our platforms every day. But we also want to learn what people care about and how are they using Horizon. Are they using it to actually use Instagram and look at their feed? Are they using it to play games? What and how are they spending time on it? So Horizon is definitely in its infancy. Launching 2D is going to really only help us learn more of that. But you're seeing that engagement and playtime go up every single day, and the way that you can also experience is just completely different than just being either in Quest, being VR, or even in MR, and then all of a sudden you're just like, you forget where you are. And what we talk a lot about is there is no more differentiation between 2D and 3D. And there's nothing like, this is the real world and then that's the not real world. It is actually all how we're experiencing life. And I know it, I see my kids, they don't see themselves any differently in their avatar or how they are in school every day. It is all a real part of them. And so that is what we are building Horizon to do, is just to extend the ability to engage and experience games and fun and watch basketball and F1 in the comfort of your own home. We've got even fitness. People are, creating the world's smallest gym in the comfort of their own home without having to leave and do workouts on Supernatural or FitXR or Zumba. So Horizon is just going to be the way that you access all that, and we're making it free and accessible to everyone.
I love that it's gone from, AR to VR to wherever you are, like you said. So Meaghan,
That's a good tagline. I'll give you credit. I'll give you
exactly.
credit.
We got that one. We got what happens in Vegas goes everywhere. I like this. We should just, all new taglines for everyone's brand. I want to come back to Brandwatch and just we talk a lot about how things are evolving, and it seems like at a breakneck speed. So I would love for you to dive in a little bit to when you work with your customers, how much can you advise them on what to do with what's out there before they kick off versus having to hold back and just to really kind of see, and what's the comfort level you see in people, because that's just a lot of unknown for a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of similar to my first answer, a lot of legwork goes in the upfront, right? Like a lot of research. Teams are spending hundreds and hundreds of hours of research time with our analysts, with our consultants using our platforms. We're actually working directly with the Horizon team right now on a number of things.
Not weird at all?
It's called synergy. Yeah.
Seriously. So doing all of that, really, really heavy lift up front, but then also not being scared to change, not being so, worried that, okay, we've made this investment in this research and this is the way we're going and we've got to stick to this plan no matter what. I think the most successful things we've seen are, we do all of this research, like I say, we continue as part of the beauty of Brandwatch, right, is it's an always on platform. We're pulling data in near real time at all times. So we can kind of continue to keep that finger on the pulse, keep checking in every week, doing some analysis every week, and then if you're seeing that things are not going the way you thought they were going to go, not being scared to kind of make that shift and change in real time.
Seems like trying to be anything other than authentic, it's just not going to work. There's just too much data proving otherwise. We've gotten to the point where I'd love to leave time at the end for any questions, anything that anyone would like to ask us about.
Any shows you guys want to complain about not getting renewed?
He's going right back afterwards. He can get things canceled or renewed for you. Just let him know.
I actually had a question with regards to data and, again, reactionary marketing. Would you say that there's also a kind of unspoken truth to leaning into risk sometimes? Leaning into risk, meaning data can only tell you so much, but sometimes you just have to kind of assess it and make an informed risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that actually resonates most when it comes to influencer marketing. So we do work with a lot of teams kind of assessing influencers. And it's more about going into it with eyes wide open, right? If you know that you're partnering with an influencer that maybe isn't perfectly squeaky clean, but you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, but despite it all, they resonate with your brand and they're the right person, and whatever the rationale is, I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and just having that knowledge going into it.
So,
Can I answer that question too?
yes.
It was a good one. I think a lot of what we aim to do is obviously rely on data to inform the next thing that we do. The challenge with the technology and how quickly things are changing is a lot of it is from just taking that risk. Even Sphere, we did it during Halloween, we're doing it again during Black Friday. We don't know what the metrics are going to be yet. We have hypotheses, we have great ambitions, But a lot of it is like trial by fire and then quickly understanding what does or doesn't work. And so I do think that as marketers, we do have to take risks. We have to also be held accountable and also be okay with where we are taking those bigger swings in the hopes that it's going to actually drive X, Y, or Z. But also, like, when something is so new, you want to also try it before you rule out that it's not going to work. So I think it does take risk-taking.
Speaking of that, I have another question for you because you're work on a very interesting part of the business for me because you work for a company that has Facebook and Instagram, which I feel like everyone has sort of adopted. But, you know, when you're talking about technology, things have a higher price point, people are uncomfortable with it. What is the balance between offering a high-end, you know, experience that people who know what they want will get into versus trying to bring people in? Like I see a diversification of some of your product to be able to do that. So I'd love for you to sort of speak to how that works.
Yeah, I mean, the key is demo. Like, you don't get it until you do it, and then once you do it, your mind is blown. So our biggest barrier is that, and so what we try to do is, for the smart glasses, do AR try-on through filters and lenses. We can do that pretty easily. With Quest, like, you actually have to do it. You can't, as much as I can tell you how amazing it is, like, you won't understand it until you do it. So we scale our demos, and we do that in retail, experiential, and try to bring that level of immersion to people. That's another reason why we launched Horizon in 2D, so that you could start to see what it was like to play something, but then again, when you played in 3D, it's a totally different experience. So that is our barrier, is getting people to try it and making sure that we do that at scale is our biggest challenge, and my teams in particular from a marketing perspective. That is like the unlock for us is actually getting people in the technology. So through our third-party retailers, that's how we do that.
We moved on from audience questions really quickly. Is there anybody else?
The DJ is setting up.
The DJ had one.
Number one, can you hear me?
Yes.
I've had bad luck with that early. It's not great. Number one, I'm loving all of the House of Usher. So I don't know if you can renew something when the
really good.
author's been dead for centuries, but loving it. But this is, of course, for everybody. Going back to live experiential immersive, that's been my role for 15 years. So my take, and correct me if you hear anything wrong here, a benefit of having the entire supply chain of technology go down is that it actually did have to go back to the story, right? Is you could not write shiny object your way into anything or any audience. And now, of course, I think we don't know quite what people have been thinking about and working on, and it hasn't quite come to market, right? So we're in that in-between. But whatever you're seeing from your vantage points, what are you most excited about when it comes to the shift now, supply chains being back, technology accelerating, and still hopefully holding on to the storylines? Where do you think that next paradigm shift or great aha moment is going to be in the live experiential space?
It was the same exact question? Oh, wow. All right.
That's impressive. Who wants to take that one? If not,
I can take it.
Go ahead.
As far as exciting goes, I think you hit it on the head. I think it's this blurred line now where I think in the past it was cost prohibitive to do something like this. It didn't scale. It was limited. I didn't travel outside of that region, that localized event. We're seeing now it's collective. We're building things to be more compartmentalized and scalable, not just in domestically but globally. That's the thinking I think that we had in mind. Now is taking standing on the shoulders of what Walt Disney did and built the theme park. Because I really think at the end of the day, the best immersive is theme park mindset, right? It's how do you take that, entertain, surprise, delight, but also create something that's going to be have legacy, memory beyond just your IP or that instance of showing, whether it's a theatrical window or when it streams, or binge watch that session. What's that legacy? How's it going to live on beyond that? How do you sustain that conversation, that zeitgeist? That's what I'm excited about. I think, to your point, supply chain and technology that's coming together and being able to partner with technology partners like Meta, who obviously know what they're doing, investing in Ray-Ban and also pushing the envelope and trying something new. that is what's exciting to us now, because we have partners that are just as invested and are willing to take informed risks with us to try something new. But I think it's changed, I would say, and I'm dating myself, since the days of 2010, when Tron Legacy, I think, was the first one at San Diego Comic-Con doing this, and I think put immersive on the map. So we've come a long way, to your point, in the last 10, 15 years.
I mean, I think even just taking Netflix as the IP, I mean, the Stranger Things fandom is just massive. And we know that as part of the cultural zeitgeist. I think as you think about live experiences and that immersive passion that people have for the show, how do you extend that when the season ends? That's why we launched Stranger Things on Quest, right? So it's like, how do you put yourself in the show? How do you continue to bring the upside down to your living room and do it in a way that like makes you feel like you're still experiencing the show, but again, just differently. So I also think like live experiences have taken on their own definition because fans are so passionate and they can do it now on their own, and like putting that in their hands and their control is another dimension of it.
Yeah, I think on that note, really quickly, I think another thing that's changed in the past 15 years is we've gone from a very conservative, I think, mindset as well, from a brand and IP franchise level, to now we're actually recognizing the power that's invested in giving that to the fans, quite frankly. At the end of the day, it's not yours anymore. I think that's what Barbie did so damn well, is it's not Mattel's, it's not the pink box, it's more than that. And you guys enabled and empowered everyone to kind of participate and make it theirs.
I think it's also crazy that we've gotten to a point where you have people who can
How
do
crazy?
things. Well, no, but like the idea of, you know, a few years ago of taking a whole house and partnering with Airbnb and actually creating a Barbie dream house, like it would have been cost prohibitive, the brands wouldn't have seen the value in it, but I think that people are changing the way that they're doing things, and it's less about how much are you paying someone to do a partnership or an experiential. It is how aligned are the brands and the customers they're trying to reach. Do all boats rise with the tide type of thing versus sort of spending money. Like that's what I really enjoyed about doing partnerships on Barbie, was just that it wasn't have to do them. Like we knew the movie was going to be a success. We had no idea it would be as big as it was, obviously, but like you didn't have to go and prove it. You didn't have to explain what Barbie was. What you wanted to do was to say, what does Barbie mean to you, and let people tell their own stories. So like to your point, it's like however you are reaching people, however you're talking to people, if you're able to sort of just elevate single voices, that gives you scale that, you know, maybe pre-pandemic you didn't really have.
And I think too, you know, people find their own communities, to what we were saying earlier, kind of find your nerddom, right? Experiential no longer just stays in that one moment, it goes viral amongst these communities that are so passionate about it. So I think where there might have been hesitancy in the past to do some of those experiential moments, now you know that it's going to extend beyond that moment.
I always like to ask, like, what is the headline we want coming out of it? It's like now you really have to kind of work backwards in experiential and not, you know, just sort of like, we're going to do this and we're going to figure out how it works. Instead, you now really have to go into it knowing what you want to get out of it and work backwards and have the data and everything else to support getting there.
I think as far as headlines goes in the kind of genre platforms we're working on here at Netflix is we know we're going to get coverage from, you know, or media outlet coverage from the usual suspects. What the real secret sauce is, how do we kind of break that mold and get coverage and earn media by mainstream media outside of the niche audiences, outside of the genre, and really become the conversation everyone's talking about.
So that's mostly your question. There's something else.
Definitely, I think outside of experiential, there's also the consumer products, the partnerships. Those things are all extensions of that brand and that experience to personalize it for yourself. What the customers and the fans do with those things is up to them, but more than likely they're going to share, they're going to pose with it, they're going to cosplay with it, they're going to do stupid, crazy meetups with each other because they met on data platforms, and then, you know, saw each other on Meta Quest and said, hey, let's hang out. You like this? I love Stranger Things. Let's do this. So it's all kind of feeding the beast, as it were, and kind of continuing that conversation beyond any kind of theatrical window or seasonality as far as content goes. But I think another thing that we recently did and we keep exploring is, and I think we're guilty of this in a lot of early marketing stages, but I'll be honest, the coasts are spoiled, okay? Everyone activates on those coasts. We have taken a cognitive choice and effort to kind of activate, not only just on the coast, but a lot of what you would call the fiber states or the deep south, markets we usually don't activate in, and we have found and been able to identify places like Richmond, Virginia, that was not on our radar on the map. They come out in droves. Those people are geeks. They're awesome. They want the content, and they'll show up. So again, it's about mitigating the risk, right? We're going to be on the coast, check. But let's take swings at these other marketplaces and figure it out. I think that's another way of buying people's time, right? Getting your share of voice. But that also comes into listening and data, right? Anytime we activate against those coasts and they get spoiled, we hear it, we listen to it. They're very loud and saying, when are you coming to this city? Why not here? So that's about, means of also bringing, I think, member joy and fulfillment.
I think to your point, it's the most precious thing people can give you is their time. It's not money, and I think that what I'm a big fan of in your space is that people can really just immerse themselves and escape from things like ours. I think there's a distinct difference between a location-based entertainment where you can go in and literally walk through a freezer door and enter it into another world versus sort of like just sitting there and but people do it in different ways. Like sometimes you do have to actually get out of the house and go do things, and I think to differentiate with that is it's okay that you're competing with other things. Just you have to be able with whatever you're doing. You've heard from a lot of people, the last 2 days. It's all about how do you make your own thing the best thing it can possibly be and differentiate itself. People will pick what they want to do. You can't force them not to do what they don't.
I'd also say you're in a unique position because you're in Las Vegas, which is transforming before our very eyes as far as a kind of destination for entertainment and now sports and everything. It's not about competing for share of voice. It's how do we kind of all share that share of voice. And what strategic partnerships can be done with sports teams or with, people in the luxury business or residential business and kind of making that more of a collective effort.
I love the headline tool. We also write the headline we don't want. In an effort to make sure that the program that we're building or the experience that we're creating is not going to alienate our consumer or the parent that's going to buy the game or the product for their kids. I think, yes, there's no shortage of surfaces and ways to engage. We also have the benefit of our own platforms and how people engage on those, but we know that that's not going to be the end-all be-all. And so I think, it always comes down to like what is going to get the consumer, in our case, to actually demo and try the thing. And as long as we're ultimately driving to that consideration, then it's worth it. And it's not always a linear process. And so I think it is about taking some of those risks, as we talked about, but it is also understanding like the customer journey, obviously, in our case, because it isn't a cheap headset or pair of smart glasses, and it is a choice that someone's going to make over something else, and getting them to consider that several times is going to be important. So for us, it is definitely what is the ideal perception that we want consumers to take away, but how do we get them even in the headset to try it? Because once they try it, they'll hopefully buy it. So anything that doesn't get in the way of that is what we prioritize.
And I think about like affinities and journeys, right? So as you're trying to think about getting people into your headset, right? You're thinking about those affinities like Stranger Things to say, okay, what's the affinity of a Stranger Things fan to be prone to want to try this kind of technology, right? And kind of lean into that. And then what's that journey? Okay, the season of Stranger Things ended, but I want to keep that feeling alive. So now is going to be the moment I'm going to look for how can I explore this content in other ways, right? So it's really looking at those kind of moments and how they come together.
You also asked part of your question was interesting to me because you asked, how do you know if something's a hit? I think the real secret, to your point, is knowing your own data. Because only you and your brand will be able to identify something that is, there's always a sign. And sometimes it's just a little one, but it could be, in the entertainment industry, we put out a trailer. How did the trailer perform? What kind of the comments are coming? It could be, the reactions from press. It could be anything that you're getting. But you have to just pay attention to your own data and not depend on others. Others will cultivate it for you, but looking at it and making sure you know your own data, you'll be able to spot if something's going to be a big hit. Sometimes there are certain things that just happen and they weren't expected, but they're happy surprises. All right, guys.
We good?
Hand it back over.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you.